I'm sure you guys have heard about the incident that happened in Texas at a pool party where allegedly a fight had broken out or something to that degree, and the police were called out. And there was this one officer that was completely overboard with the decisions that he made as far as detaining the teenagers that was involved or just teenagers that were at the party in general. And this guy was, pulling out guns on these teenagers, and he was specifically targeting the black children. And it was a pretty mixed crowd. You had white kids out there, you had Hispanics, Arab, black kids. It was a pretty diverse type of crowd. And looking at the neighborhood, it looked like probably what you would say, a middle class area. And I do have to mention that because that does play a part into this video. But it looked like a middle class area, typical pool party, teenagers around, having fun. The summertime is creeping up. Kids want to go out and have fun. But this officer decided to go out there and basically target strictly the black teenagers that were out there. One thing led to another. He ended up on top of this teenage. I believe she was 16 years old, black girl. Pinning her down like a goddamn football player. Had his knee all on her, and the girl was irate. She was screaming, saying, call my mother. I saw there was a segment of the video where he was chasing some teenagers and he fell. And I think that was the spark that really brought out this cop's inner feelings. And, like I've said before, a lot of these cops, they pretend as if they're there to protect and serve, but they come to work with certain agendas. They have certain biases. They deal with racism. They deal with certain stereotypes. And this is something that we all have to be honest with. A lot of times people think that, because you're dealing with a doctor, you're dealing with a police officer or a lawyer or someone who has some type of honorable line of work they do, somehow we feel like these people are supposed to be stand-up people, and a lot of times they're not. They're normal people like everybody else. They deal with having certain biases, prejudice, dealing with certain stereotypes that they think, racism, etc., etc. And when the officer failed, I think the guy got embarrassed, and I heard in the video he said, you're making me run around in 30-pound equipment in the heat. Now, obviously, this fat fuck needs to get in the gym, because if you're an officer, okay, and you go to work every day, that equipment is heavy. You running after a suspect or running after anybody while you're on duty shouldn't be an issue. Maybe you need to lay off the cold cuts, put down the donuts, and get your fat ass in the gym instead of blaming teenagers for the reason why you got winded. But I digress. So going back to the actual incident, this cop target nothing but the black teenagers. And it was clear that, it was a form of racism. It was clear that this officer, felt like because these black kids were here, they had to be the ones that were fighting. They had to be the ones that were out here in this middle class area tearing up stuff, being destructive. And I was looking at not to be stereotypic, because I'm the type of guy, I'm very balanced. Okay, I know what it's like to live in a middle class society. I know what it's like to live in a quote unquote hood. I've been in a 2-parent household. I've been in a single-parent household. So I'm well balanced. You can't tell me shit because I know the game. I'm not, looking at things from one side. And we have a lot of children within the middle class society that, even though they might have a balanced structure, they're not always street smart, because a lot of times their parents shelter them from certain things, or they don't like to talk about racism or, things that are going on in society. They say, you know what, honey, just go to school, and You have your ballet practice after, and it really kind of sheltered them from society. Not all, but this does happen when it comes to black children who are raised in predominantly a middle class society. They don't get that that diversity. Whereas if you look at kids that grew up in a quote unquote hood, they deal with certain things. They deal with stuff like this more on an everyday basis. I can remember walking in certain communities and getting harassed by the cop just for simply walking down the street. So I think at a younger age, even though you might live in an unbalanced, structured home, even though you might live in a community that might not be as safe, you also get, I would say, a more clear understanding of how society works. And I was watching the kids, and these kids, they weren't threatening, it wasn't nobody out there, trying to fight the police or, the young men that the cop had detained, the young black men that the cop had to detain were very respectful. They were like, hey, sir, we just came here for a pool party. We weren't involved. If you look at the video, they were talking to a police officer when this officer decided to come in and be very hostile, very aggressive, and tell them to, get on the ground, sit your asses down. I mean, just very disrespectful to these young men and these young black women for no reason. And if you look at the delts in the video, and I'm not sure I'm gonna put a video in this particular video, but I'm gonna try to. But if you look at the adults that were around, white adults, they did not try to interfere with the wrongdoing that was going on. You had some few little white teenager or whatever that might have been their friends or whatever that say, hey, what are you doing? There even was an officer that when the hostile officer, I forgot the guy's name, but when he pulled out his firearm because things weren't going the way he wanted to go, which was highly wrongdoing and not proper protocol, when he pulled out his firearm on a bunch of teenagers that were non-threatening, you had one of the officers like, hey man, what are you doing? Calm down. But none of the parents in this situation say, hey officer, there were a bunch of kids who were involved. It's not right to target these particular teenagers. Let's find out everything that's going on. Let's not, play favoritism or, target a group of people because of the color of their skin or target these group of kids simply because they're right here. And obviously, if they're talking to the police and they're just standing around as bystanders, more than likely they weren't the children that were involved in the incident. But you see, this is where common sense and street smarts come in. This is where kids that grew up in a quote unquote hood might have adapted to this situation a little bit better. The thing about being a black American, you don't necessarily have to be doing anything. You could be at the wrong place at the wrong time or in the wrong situation around the wrong type of people and get locked up. It's that simple. You don't have to be doing anything to be locked up, especially if you're a black male. And what these kids didn't do, and what, kids who might have had a little bit more street smarts would have done, the minute you find that there's something popping off, the minute you find there's a fight that broke out or, there's an altercation going on, there's a high possibility that something could be disruptive or getting ready to jump off, you leave. You remove yourself from that situation. And that's the way I was raised. I've been at, certain parties or whatever that, I knew it was gang members there or it was a high possibility the joint was going to get shot up or, the party lasted too long and I knew the cops were going to show up or whatever. And I left. I removed myself. Because guess what? I could be one of the good kids, and I'm sure all these these black teenagers that got detained, got harassed by this Mr. Piggy that decided to tackle him and harass him. I'm sure these were good kids, But see, they didn't use their head. And a lot of times, kids that are not well balanced, not exposed, they don't know how to adapt to certain things in certain situations. Now, the first thing they should have done is they should have got out of it. That was number one. But also, you have to realize that when you go into these communities, and a lot of people don't like to talk about this, but we have to keep it real. When you go to these certain middle class communities and you go over these white kids' houses for these pool parties or sleepovers or whatever, a lot of times the parents don't like you, but they'll tolerate these black kids because their daughter, their son likes them, so they don't want to seem, racist or they don't want to seem like a bad parent. But really, they don't want you in their neighborhood. You got some black folks who are homeowners in certain communities that don't want black people in their community. Don't want to see an abundance of black people in the community, because you have some people who, might get to a certain level, or whatever, and they live in a middle class area or whatever, it's diverse. They want to see, a few chocolate drops here and there, but they don't want it to be an abundance of black people. Why? Because psychologically they feel like it gives their home more value. It gives their area more value because the highest population of people who are there are Caucasian. And this is something that a lot of black folks don't like to talk about, but we have to keep it real out here. And when you go into these certain communities, you have to be wise, you have to be quick on the draw, and you have to be smart. Because it doesn't take much for a black person to end up 6 feet in the ground, end up behind bars. This whole game and this system is designed for us to be in one of those two places. But I hope some of the parents go down to that police department and get in somebody's ass, because we have to protect our children out here. Okay, we have to make sure that we have the best interest for our children, because you saw them white parents out there, they didn't give a damn. They let that go down. And I'll be damned, if that was my daughter, some grown ass man tackled my daughter to go, I'm gonna be down at that police station, I'm gonna have my foot in somebody's ass. So I hope these parents go down there and make sure that, this cop is reprimanded. From what I've read, he has been suspended, but that's not good enough. This is a character that quote unquote got an award for best officer in 2008. This is a guy who is training other rookie officers to be on the force. And he's making decisions like this. So, hey, black parents out there, whether you in the lower income area, whether you middle class, upper class, we have to protect our children. Because as soon as something go down with white kids or anybody else, white folks will write a letter. Honey, I'm writing a letter. This is bullshit. I pay my taxes. I be damned if my kids are harassed. So we need to start doing the same damn thing. You go up there to that police department, you get in their ass, and you make sure that this dude is reprimanded to the highest extent. Or you lawyer up and you file a lawsuit. Black folks, let's start voting, let's start being wise, let's start teaching our children. Because you're not going to learn everything in a classroom, you're not going to learn everything in a book. Some of this stuff you just got to learn from living. So, hey, let's be more wise out here. To that officer, you need your ass kicked. But I'm out. You guys give me your feedback. The link to the video will be in the description box if I don't add it already into the video. But thanks for watching. You guys give me your feedback. Peace.